When I think about the epitome of health, it's being more than just productive, it's being purposeful. I think most people think if I get $1 million, then I'm just going to put my feet up,
For sure.
call it a day. I wanted to live a life where I woke up every day with purpose and passion, and it actually had very little to do with the money in the bank. There are so many little things in my day that I'm actually living more for than the big milestones.
But also like living for those smaller things gets you to those bigger milestones.
Absolutely.
Because if you have nothing between this milestone and this milestone, the distance, the gap is vast and
It's a massive
empty
chasm.
and scary. But if you have
Yeah.
tiny little things that you do to get there, you don't even realize that you've gotten that far.
You were made to do more in life than just pay bills and get by. The key to even more success? Get your assets together. With generational growth, we're not just talking about wealth. This is about building your version of an incredible life in every area that truly matters: mind, body, business, and self-care. What if I told you there's a life-changing opportunity to help yourself, even now and especially now? I'm KK Hart, an expert on being both well and wealthy. I've spent decades building what's basically my own investment fund, emphasis on fun, acquiring and growing unique brands with capital, partnerships, and strategic support. I'm here to empower you to go further faster with an anti-hustle, no burnout path to getting richer and more financially fit for investing, acquisition, and growing everything you own. Let's grow.
So let's talk about your health as wealth and kind of leveraging your physical capital. There's a phrase that really rocked me a couple years ago called the human energy crisis. And I never thought that I would see this play out in real time. But I have actually seen more what you would consider successful people become less successful due to issues related to their personal development, not related to their money, not related to their business or their career. And it's wild to see someone's life implode when there's money in the bank.
Yeah.
When there's like great things externally going on. And so I know this is commonly said, but not commonly taken up as advice, but I really believe this. There is a tangible link towards your physical well-being and your financial well-being.
Yeah.
And that includes the relationships you keep, the way you treat your body, the way you treat your mind. And I think right now, self-care is having a moment perhaps, but actually most things I see in the name of self-care is not actually self-care. It's posturing. And so I thought we would talk really seriously about this. I think addiction is something that has always been near and dear to my heart because I've always believed that I could be one stage away from some addiction.
Sure.
And so I kind of lived my life with that premise. So I really tried to stay far away from anything that could become addictive for me, except for the one thing that was addictive for me, which was achievement. So I went from, being an ambitious person, thinking workaholism was the goal, and like that would be the thing that fuels my success. And I think it was, but it also was almost what caused my demise. I was so emotionally unavailable. I was so unclear about who I really was and so codependent in the fixer role, which was great. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just fixing things.
Yeah.
People, businesses, things that I think I could have really ruined my life. And that hard pivot is actually something that I rarely think about as a success, but it actually is what got me to be more successful.
Yeah.
Was, kind of looking at my personal development and doubling down on that. And that includes therapy, but it also means understanding myself at a level where I know my proclivities, I know what I lean towards, and then I get to choose whether or not that's a strength I want to double down into.
Yeah.
People always ask me this, like, how did you always make the right bet? And it's like, no, I didn't. I didn't always make the right bet at all, especially in personal development.
Right.
But I think a skill of mine that I wish I could dispel more to others is seeing things that are perceived as weaknesses and turning them into strengths. And so I would say, being someone who largely was seen as a fixer, a doer, a secret weapon in businesses and in my career. That could have gone really south if I stayed with that identity on a personal level.
Yeah.
So I really believe there's non-negotiables to health. And I thought it'd be important to talk these through because health is so much more than just what's happening with your body. It's 100% more about what's going on in your mind. As a behaviorist, I can tell you that every single action had a thought. Whether that thought was conscious or subconscious is up for debate. But when I think about the epitome of health, it's being more than just productive, it's being purposeful. So what aspects of your health do you feel like you really struggled with as you got better in life? And then what aspects of your health do you feel like you're still looking at the next step?
Financially or physically?
Both.
I think as I was getting better at it financially, the thing that was the hardest was restraint. And I think the inverse was true for as I was getting better at taking care of my physical health, which is something that I think just our family thinks about a lot. So I have thought about for a really long time.
Fair.
But as I got more intentional about it, I think it was the opposite. It was consistency.
Yeah. My favorite.
Even now, I think I struggle with consistency because I think I'm more focused on my day-to-day personal career investments than I am my personal health investments.
Sure.
Which is something I'm aware of and I don't want to be true forever.
Yeah.
But I think for where my next few steps are, my Pilates board isn't getting me there.
Sure.
It maybe is helping me sometimes on a hard day or when I feel like I can't think about the next step in my career because I'm having brain fog or I need to move my body or I'm just kind of I feel like a stagnant pond sometimes where I just need to move the energy around. It can assist with that.
Yeah.
But I think I just don't think about it as often as I once did.
Sure.
And so I think that's something I'm still working on. What was the other part of your question?
So what about on the financial side?
The thing that I struggled with the most as I was getting better at it, which I think I am better at now, was just the restraint side of it, of not, because I think I was so focused on feeling good, and feeling good for me meant sometimes pretending to have an amount of success that I did not have.
Oh my God,
because so
say
many
that.
people around me had that success. And I didn't know until much later is because for the majority of them, it was handed to them.
Sure.
Or it was a plan that they had for a really long time that they were now seeing the fruits of. But I wasn't there for that planning. So I just saw that they had it. And I wanted to fit in and I wanted to have it too. And so I think when you're trying to build from nothing, you have to sort of hold yourself back in instances where other people don't have to. And that feels really bad sometimes. And so I think that's the thing that I struggled with a lot. And I think where I try to give myself grace is that when I'm thinking of the time period in my life when I was doing that, I was a late teen. So I think now I may think about it different because I have a lot more life experience.
Sure.
I have almost a decade on that kid.
Yeah.
But it still is something that I have to actively think to not do.
You know what every billionaire talks about more than anything? Their adversity and how it made them who they are.
For sure.
And I think we are so trapped in our heads about what success really looks like that we forget that just because it's not successful now doesn't mean it won't be in the future.
Yes.
It's this idea of zooming out in our lives is incredibly important. I think of every single failure. I have literally 4 decades of life in me now. So I am seeing things that I thought of were crushing failures or even just nothing failures turn into an element of my success. I'll give you an example. When I got divorced, I created a whole right-hand ring company. And that, was a beautiful idea in theory.
I vaguely remember that.
Yes. And so the thought process around it is the idea of taking off that ring really symbolized a lot of failure to me, especially being someone who was from a family that really seemed to champion divorce, just everywhere.
For sure.
And I don't like keeping up with the Joneses, so I was trying to be different. And when I took off that ring, I was so lost. I was so not clear on who I was. I was also quite young. And so it really meant something for me to create something that empowered me. So looking back, that business was like a very small total addressable market, which means not a lot of people have that problem where they get divorced with a lot of money. A lot of women, actually, it's the number one cause of their financial issues. And so I left a crummy relationship looking better on the outside. And I felt like taking off the ring was like the way of proving that. So I thought, well, I'll build my own rings. And I went and sourced, the
I'll wipe my own
finest
ass.
gemstones, literally. And, what was interesting is people thought they were gorgeous, but nobody could afford them.
Yeah.
And so when I think about how that informs, 10 years later, it is literally the phrase of my most successful business, be empowered, which was the name of the business. It was empowering, which had that double entendre of like empowering and empowering, the ring. And you can't have that perspective unless you're willing to zoom out.
Yeah.
If you're willing to see every failure as a stepping stone, every stuck as an area of opportunity. And I have a client that has always said this about me. She's like, you think in ways that most people don't. You optimize instead of see the negative.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, okay, this aspect of the business isn't amazing. Okay, so here's how we're going to optimize it.
Yeah.
And I think if we approach our health that way, if we approach our wealth that way, it is a very different perspective that allows us to get to the finish line.
And I think something that I also struggled with, because a lot of what you're saying now is a lot of things that you've said to me repetitively at different periods in my life. And so I'm thinking back to like the first time that I heard
Benefits of
something
being
like
an
that.
overbearing aunt.
Yeah. And about like, optimizing the way you think. And I think the first time that hit me, I was like, well, that's just called being fake. That's just called like not seeing reality for what it is. And I was like, well, okay, like I guess you can do that and you can like trick yourself into thinking that everything's so happy all the time, but like it's not. And I would prefer to just like sit in the misery if things are genuinely miserable, which I still do stand by that. If things genuinely do suck, I don't think you have to trick yourself into thinking otherwise.
Yeah.
But I think how I hear it more now is that like, you're not being fake. You're not seeing something for what it isn't. You're seeing something for what it could be rather than what it is right now.
Yeah.
Where like you can still say what it is right now is bad.
Yeah.
But here are aspects of it that I could focus on to make it into something that is less bad or maybe even good.
Yeah.
And that's very realistic.
Every single person has failures.
Yeah.
I challenge a person to show up in the world and tell me they've never had a failure. The difference is what they do next.
Yeah.
And so I think the very successful, what I end up seeing as a pattern, right? Pattern recognition is something you do as a behavioral scientist really well. And we usually use it for evil, like getting you to buy certain goods. And I try to use it for good on a regular basis. And so when you look at the pattern, it's not who won in the moment. It's who's willing to see the loss and turn it into a win later. It goes back to that delayed gratification. It goes back to that playing the long game instead of the short game. And I think especially as we think about our personal development, it's real easy to sit in the failures because we don't have always the perspective of how it could be something.
Yeah.
How the optimization could really make that 1 degree of difference.
And I will say that I think with this new mindset that I have that is different from a mindset a different version of me would have had, I think my willingness to sit in failure was actually a strength that I wasn't capitalizing on.
Yeah.
Because I have no problem with sitting in the fact that whatever happened was shitty.
Yeah.
And I can really sit in that. But I think for a while I was like sitting in it, but not seeing what was in it. And so I think when I had that breakthrough of like, okay, well maybe like everything here isn't always bad, or like maybe like if I saw this as a stepping stone instead of like a complete loss, then I would shift my lens on it a little bit. Like I would see things in it that I am not seeing if I'm just looking for the negative. And so I think like being able to stay in that negative space really helped me, try on different hats in that space and be like, okay, but what if I saw it this way? Or what if I, saw this in this light? Or what if this thing actually, what if I did the opposite? Where would that take me? And like being willing to go to those negative places means that I'm not afraid to find them.
Yeah, I think about this as a behaviorist. We talk about approaching issues with compassion
Yeah.
and also with curiosity.
It's like Buddhism.
Yeah. It's also internal family systems, which I use with the kids and I use with clients all the time. And it's really about kind of this help yourself model for success. And if I approach with curiosity, then I'm looking at what happened versus chastising myself for the fact that it did.
Yes.
And I think every great success story comes on the heels of a failure. We seem to forget that. And when I think about the personal development aspect of life, the area of opportunity that I saw the day I had the conversation to find out that I had $1 million, that first $1 million, I was in such a dark place. I don't know if I could have bet better than on realizing the money was not bringing me happiness. I heard that million and I felt lonely. I felt polarized and I felt like all of it is going to go to the dog. So what did I do?
Spent it on the dog.
Yeah, for sure. He deserves all of it. It's his trust fund. I then realized that I needed to go create the life I wanted instead of wallow in the pity of what I had. It was an action point for me. I think most people think if I get $1 million, then I'm just going to put my feet up,
For sure.
call it a day. And for me, it was a call to action that I wasn't actually in the life that I wanted. And that I wanted to live a life where I woke up every day with purpose and passion. And it actually had very little to do with the money in the bank.
So was the goal at the time like acquiring the wealth? Or did you have other goals that you weren't hitting and then you were like, oh, well, like I have this tool that I'm not using in order to propel these other goals forward and that makes me sad?
That's a great question. I actually think back to that Dream Manager book. I had equal parts personal and professional goals on there. The way I approached them, oh my gosh, was so different. This is like, it's amazing. I'm thinking about this in a stream of consciousness. On the personal side, I treated that shit like a checklist. Check, check, check,
For sure.
check. And you can see that in the way my life kind of unfolded before 30.
For sure.
On the professional side, I treated that thing like I was a strategist. Oh my gosh. It was like, okay, so what do I need to do to get there? So how do we make this happen? But look at the approaches.
Yeah.
And look at the success and the optimization that was needed in those two areas. And so I think that day, I remember having that conversation. I had a financial advisor at the time. And he was so excited for me, and I was so miserable because I thought to myself, great, now I've limited my pool of who I could attract in my life to be happy for me.
Oh, I see.
It's crazy, right? Like, again, I heard the one negative thing in a sea of positive things.
Yeah.
And I tell you this because I wish I had orchestrated it in a way that looks really good. But I think I genuinely said to myself, well, now you have no excuse then to go out and create the very best life that you could possibly have, because it really wasn't about money anymore. That is when I leaned even more into my health, my interpersonal relationships. And I think this version of me that I am now, which is somebody who can embrace her ability to have empathy, who can be known for doing and listening, and that really believes in this power of others in a way that's not self-seeking and also not wanting to hurt myself to help others, but that I knew the version of success that I wanted was always more about money, but now it was about this holistic view of success that allowed me and unlocked for me purpose. And I think I was living without purpose before that.
So do you think, because I think this is probably where you lose some people, where like you got the money and then you thought about the holistic journey. So like, do you think for you it was necessary to attain the wealth before you could think about the holistic journey, or do you wish you'd done it inversely?
Oh, I wish I had done it inversely. I think this is more so my stuff.
Okay.
Where I really didn't know myself well enough to understand what was really driving me. I actually never really had like hard goals. Like I wrote that Dream Manager book stuff down, but it was never like I consulted it regularly. Actually, you may realize I said I found it a decade later.
Yeah.
So I found it literally in my childhood bedroom, in like the closet in the back. I know you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And that was all the success had already been.
Yeah.
So I think I wasn't actually thinking very consciously about who I wanted to be and what I was doing in that area. I was more so just living in this like survival mode way of doing things, which is like, there's one thing I always said about myself is like, I know how to make money. I know how to make other people successful.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to double down on that. I never thought about who I really am, what I want to do, what are my skills outside of that. And I wish I did. I think I would have been more successful sooner, which sounds crazy. But I also think I would have brought a lot more people on the ride with me in a healthy way. But, being a healthy person now, I choose not to look back and I choose to look forward. And I think a lot about networks and interpersonal relationships and how much that can play into our success. It is an area of our personal development that I think we often overlook as the thing that can make or break us.
Oh, yeah.
But I think as we lean into that next, I would love to hear some of your like non-negotiables for life, maybe as it relates to your personal health and also your personal development.
Yeah. Well, first, I wanted to touch on something that you were talking about like, you felt like you couldn't think or you didn't think about the bigger picture of like what you wanted to do with your success because you were so focused on survival or building. And I think that is a truth. And that is a truth that a lot of people live for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I feel like, thinking about the entire journey and the entire picture can feel really overwhelming when you're just worried about like next month or next week. And so I think like for me, it has been like a vast opening of that worldview when it comes to like my own financial and personal success and growth, where it's like, maybe I started out with like, okay, what do I need in order to like pay all of my bills next month?
Sure.
And then a few months down the road, it was, what do I need in order to have a little bit more to spend on something I want and also have my bills paid? And then that just kept opening and opening the circle to where like thinking about, what do I want to do with my greater personal and financial success doesn't feel like that big of a picture to take in.
Yeah.
It feels like something that like maybe I don't want to think about the entire thing just yet, but I'm definitely seeing more than when I first started. So I think like having a story and a journey for your success is important, but you don't have to know the entire book when you start out. And I think like to go into what you were asking about non-negotiables, I think for a while, like I just couldn't think that way.
Sure.
Like I just had to say yes to everything. And that is how I figured out what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
So like I remember when I was living in New York and I was working retail and I was also working at night at a restaurant. And there were some nights when I would do both. And so I would be working from like 8 a.m. to like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
And I did that for probably only like 5-ish months because you can't really do that for very long. But I think that was my first like, okay, I know I need to have time for myself. I need to build that into my schedule.
Yeah.
That is a non-negotiable for me. So like now at my job, I have 1 day a week that I request, like it's not in my availability. It's not because I'm doing anything that day that is for another job. It's usually because I'm going to a dance class because that's 1 day that I have for me to do something that I love to do. Or something that just makes me feel good in my body. And that might not be like perpetuating my financial or personal growth directly, but it certainly is helping me be able to show up for myself better in those areas. And so I think that was the first one. And the second one, it was a harder one to stick to, but I need to like what I'm doing.
Oh, that's me.
I don't need to, my passion does not need to be my career, but I do need to enjoy what I'm doing in order to keep doing it. And I think that a lot of times we get stuck in like, well, I'm making enough money from this.
Yeah.
And so I should like the money, even if I don't like the thing that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that means like sometimes, doing the same thing in one place might feel worse than doing that exact same job in a different place. And so for me, like the culture of the place that I'm working in and the type of work that I'm doing has to feel good for me. But that's not always a thing that you can say yes to right away.
Right away, yeah. And that's actually why I chose entrepreneurship, and specifically entrepreneurship through acquisition. It's like I wanted to choose the space that I wanted to be in, the people, the culture, the community. And so you can't do that when you're building.
No.
You really are figuring it out, from the ground up. Whereas with acquisition, you can actually say, okay, this is exactly who the target client is,
Yes.
What strengths I bring to the table and what I care about. And this so closely hits me with regards to non-negotiables because, for me, it was really about loving life every day. And that means getting up in the morning and having my routines and the things I wanted to do. And it also meant like things that most people consider minutia. That's actually where I spend most of my money. Like, $5 an ounce olive oil because I would rather do that than take a pill.
Yeah.
I call them everyday luxuries now. Even the home that we built most recently was a home, we call it home is our vacation. So it's like when we sit in our living room, it looks like a hotel lobby. And so it gives us this vibe that we're always on vacation. That is a luxury every day that I can just step into that space and feel like I'm transported. There are so many little things in my day that I'm actually living more for than the big milestones.
Yeah.
Which is probably countercultural.
But also like living for those smaller things gets you to those bigger milestones.
Absolutely.
Because if you have nothing between this milestone and this milestone, the distance, the gap is vast and
It's a massive
empty
chasm.
and scary. But if you
Yeah.
have tiny little things that you do to get there, you don't even realize that you've gotten that far.
For sure. And you know what no one ever says is that a lot of times in that journey, something is happening to get you to your next step, including, so for me, being very fiscally conservative means that I always have a lot of cash on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And so cash is a bargaining tool. They call it cash is queen, cash is king, but it really is the money maker of life right now. So while I am like, putting money aside and living this like everyday luxury life where like the big picture is really minimal and the little things I may splurge on, it allowed me to have so much money on the sidelines from a cash perspective. That's actually the best assets I ever acquired. That was the reason. It's because I had money to bring to the table instantly.
Yeah.
I didn't need debt and I didn't need to struggle to know it was the right fit because I knew nothing would break me at that point.
It gave you flexibility.
It gave me exactly what we always say we want, but then we spend all our cash.
Right.
And that is truly an element of how I treat my body, how I treat my mind, and how I treat my money. It's always around that ethos. So I'm looking forward to getting into this soon.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us. Now go out there and turn your success into action. Generational Growth is about helping you in every area that matters: mind, body, business, and self-care. Share this episode on social media and LinkedIn, and feel free to send us where you feel strong and where you need support.
Please note, this content is for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered financial or professional advice. Always consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions. Some of the products and services mentioned may involve financial compensation or partnerships.